The quaint cafe nestled in a corner of Boston seemed to pulse with nostalgia as I waited for Mariana. The walls were adorned with sepia-toned photographs and art that spoke of simpler times, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sweet notes of pastries, creating a comforting embrace. I could hear the gentle hum of conversations around me, laughter punctuating the air like a familiar melody. My heart raced with anticipation. It had been years since I last saw her. As I sat at a small table by the window, I couldn't help but reflect on our childhood. Memories flooded my mind like a tide, washing over me with vivid clarity. I recall the endless summer days spent riding our bikes through the neighborhood, the secret forts we built in my backyard, and the dreams we shared beneath the stars. Those moments felt so distant yet so alive, they shaped who I was in ways I was only beginning to comprehend. I had always admired Mariana's charisma and ambition. She was a force of nature, and I was eager to see how life had treated her. The clock ticked on, and I found myself glancing at my phone, checking the time for the umpteenth time. I felt like a child again, waiting for the school bell to ring. The thrill of reunion danced in my chest, yet a flicker of anxiety gnawed at the edges of my excitement. What if we had changed too much? What if the years apart had built an insurmountable distance between us? Just as I began to spiral into doubt, the bell above the cafe door jingled, and there she was. Mariana stepped inside, and for a moment, the world around me faded. She radiated warmth and energy, her presence igniting a spark of joy deep within me. As our eyes met, a smile broke across her face, and I felt an overwhelming urge to embrace her. We rushed into each other's arms, the hug a blend of familiarity and relief. In that moment, it felt as if no time had passed at all. We pulled away, gazing into each other's eyes, and I could see the same glimmer of mischief and ambition that had characterized our youth. We settled into our cozy corner, coffee cups in hand, and within moments, the conversation flowed like a river unblocked. We shared stories, laughter, and the little details of our lives. My career as a lawyer, her adventures in the business world, the heartbreaks and triumphs that had shaped us. I felt a sense of comfort wash over me as I realized that our bond, though weathered by time, remained intact. We were still the girls who dreamed big, who believed in the power of friendship and the limitless possibilities of the future. As the weeks went by, our reconnection deepened. We met often, each rendezvous becoming a cherished ritual. Mariana's ambition was infectious. She spoke passionately about her new business venture, her eyes sparkling with dreams. The vision she painted was vibrant and compelling, full of promise and potential. I found myself captivated, swept away by her enthusiasm and determination. It felt good to be inspired again, to feel the embers of ambition reignite within me. Listening to her plans, I couldn't help but imagine the possibilities. I could see us building something amazing together, a partnership that could transcend our childhood dreams. It wasn't long before I made the decision to invest in her venture, to put my faith and a significant portion of my savings into her vision. As I signed the documents, I felt empowered and hopeful, convinced that this was the start of not just a business but a new chapter in our lives. Little did I know that the path ahead would be fraught with shadows, and the very light I saw in Mariana's ambitions would soon flicker and fade, leaving me to navigate a labyrinth of betrayal and deception. For now, however, I was caught in the whirlwind of rekindled friendship, blissfully unaware of the storm that loomed just beyond the horizon. The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains of my apartment, casting soft shadows that danced across the walls. I sat at my kitchen table, a cup of coffee in my hands, and a sense of optimism stirred within me. I had made a significant investment in Mariana's business, and now I was fully immersed in the planning stages. Every moment spent strategizing felt like a step toward a bright future, both for Mariana and for myself. The thrill of being part of something monumental, of contributing to this ambitious venture, invigorated me. I could envision success etched in every detail, from the branding to the marketing strategies we crafted together. I dove into the world of business with a fervor that surprised even me. My mind raced with ideas, and I found myself reaching for my laptop more often than not. Late nights were spent poring over market research, crafting presentations, and designing a website that would showcase Mariana's vision. In those moments, I felt like a partner in crime, working alongside my childhood friend to create something meaningful. We often sat together in the cafe where we had rekindled our friendship, surrounded by the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the comforting hum of conversations. The laughter we shared echoed in my heart, a sweet reminder of the bond we had built over the years. But then came a morning that shattered my newfound optimism. I had planned to discuss the next phase of our project, excited to share my latest ideas. As I settled into my usual spot, an unsettling feeling crept over me. My phone buzzed insistently on the table, the screen lighting up with an unfamiliar name. It was a mutual friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in months. My heart raced as I answered, sensing urgency in their voice. The words came tumbling out like stones falling from a broken wall. Mariana was gone, vanished without a trace. My breath caught in my throat, disbelief coursing through my veins like ice water. How could this happen? We had been on the brink of something great, and now it felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath my feet. I hung up, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and dread. I stood up, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. With every passing second, the reality of the situation began to sink in. I rushed to my laptop, my fingers trembling as I began to search for any sign of Mariana. I scoured social media, hoping for a clue, a breadcrumb that would lead me to her. But the more I searched, the more I realized how expertly she had crafted her disappearance. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, leaving no traces behind. As the hours turned into a blur, a deep sense of betrayal began to take root within me. I felt like a jigsaw puzzle missing its most crucial piece. I had trusted Mariana, believed in her dreams and ambitions. I had invested not just my money but my faith in her. Now, all of that was crumbling around me. I needed answers, and I had to confront the truth behind her deception. I started to retrace our steps, piecing together fragments of our conversations, recalling moments that now felt tainted. There were signs I had overlooked, hints of a facade that had been meticulously constructed. I began researching Mariana's past ventures, and with each click, I unearthed a disturbing pattern. Business after business, each one had ended in failure, and each time, there were whispers of betrayal. My heart sank deeper with every discovery, the realization of how expertly she had manipulated not just me, but others too. Determination surged within me as I realized I could no longer be a victim of her deceit. I had to take control of my narrative, to reclaim my agency in the face of this betrayal. I would not allow Mariana's actions to define me or my future. The illusion of our friendship was crumbling, and with it, I found a flicker of resolve. I would uncover the truth, confront the shadows that had loomed over our relationship, and seek justice for the betrayal I had endured. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The dim light of my office flickered as I sat at my desk, surrounded by stacks of paperwork that felt heavier than my heart. The sharp scent of coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the bitter taste of betrayal that coated my tongue. I had always prided myself on my analytical skills, yet now, I found myself navigating through a haze of emotions while trying to piece together the remnants of my shattered trust in Mariana. I had never imagined that the woman I once considered a sister could orchestrate such an elaborate deception. As I began my investigation, I felt a surge of determination coursing through me. I knew that I had to gather evidence, not only for the sake of my own financial recovery, but also to protect others from falling victim to Mariana's web of lies. My legal training kicked into high gear, and with each passing day, I immersed myself in research, digging through social media accounts, old business registrations, and any connections I could find. I reached out to former associates of Mariana, some of whom were hesitant to speak, but I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful. Each interview was a mix of dread and revelation. Some shared their experiences with Mariana's previous ventures, tales that mirrored my own but with even darker undertones. She had a pattern, a blueprint of deceit that she had followed meticulously. I scribbled notes and made connections, each piece of information building a clearer picture of the woman I once adored. I recalled our laughter, the way we had dreamed about the future, and now, those moments felt like a cruel joke. The memories of our carefree childhood haunted me, twisted by the reality of betrayal. How could someone I loved turn into a ghost, leaving nothing but ashes of trust in her wake? As I combed through evidence, I stumbled upon a lead that felt like both a lifeline and a noose tightening around my heart. A former colleague of Mariana's mentioned a new city, a fresh start that she had taken after her last venture crumbled. My stomach twisted at the thought of her living a carefree life while I was drowning in the consequences of her choices. I could almost hear the laughter echoing in my mind, a haunting reminder of the bond we once shared. But now, that laughter was tainted, and I felt the weight of a darkness that I had never known. I felt the adrenaline of the hunt surge through me, a mix of anger and resolve. I needed to confront her, to demand answers, to reclaim not just my financial stability, but also the pieces of myself that she had stolen. I spent sleepless nights poring over legal texts and strategizing my approach as if I were preparing for a trial. Each moment was charged with the emotion of betrayal, the desire for justice battling against the remnants of what I once felt for her. Days turned into weeks as I meticulously planned my next steps. I traced Mariana's path, and with every revelation my heart hardened. I had once believed in her, but now she was a stranger cloaked in the guise of a friend. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, a storm of confusion, anger, and sadness that threatened to consume me. Yet I pressed on, fueled by the need to unmask the truth of our friendship. As I tracked down the address of her new life, I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. The closer I got to the truth, the tighter the knot in my stomach became. Would I find the woman I once knew, or was she truly gone, replaced by a phantom of greed and selfishness? I was about to embark on a journey that would either lead to closure or further heartbreak, and I steeled myself for whatever lay ahead. The stakes were high, but I was no longer just a victim. I was a woman on a mission, ready to confront the shadows of my past in pursuit of justice, clarity, and perhaps a chance to reclaim my own narrative. The moment I entered the dimly lit bar, the air was thick with a mix of stale beer and the remnants of laughter that echoed off the walls. I scanned the room, my heart pounding in my chest, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The neon lights flickered overhead, casting an eerie glow on the faces of the patrons, lost in their own worlds. But my focus was solely on one person, Mariana. I hadn't seen her in what felt like an eternity, and the thought of confronting her sent shivers down my spine. I spotted her behind the bar, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, a stark contrast to the black apron she wore. She was engaging with a couple of customers, her laughter infectious, her smile inviting. It struck me how effortlessly she had slipped back into a life of normalcy, while I was still grappling with the chaos she had left in her wake. My fists clenched at my sides as I approached, each step heavier than the last. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind countless times, but nothing could prepare me for the rush of emotions that surged within me. As I reached the bar, our eyes met, and the smile on her face faltered for a fraction of a second. I could see the recognition flicker across her features, quickly masked by a practiced indifference. I felt a surge of anger swell up inside me, bubbling just beneath the surface. This wasn't just about the money she had stolen. It was about the trust she had shattered, the friendship she had twisted into a cruel joke. The betrayal was a gaping wound in my heart, and I was determined to confront her, to demand answers that had eluded me for so long. Mariana straightened up, her demeanor shifting as I approached. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she assessed the situation. She had always been good at reading people, but this time, I was not the naive girl she once knew. I was a woman on a mission, fueled by a mix of heartbreak and fury. I spoke without uttering a single word, my eyes narrowing as I took in the full extent of the woman standing before me. She had always been a master of manipulation, but I could see the cracks in her facade beginning to show. In that moment, I felt a shift within myself. The fear that had once held me captive was being replaced by a fierce determination. I wasn't here to cower or plead. I was here to reclaim my dignity. As I stood there, the gravity of the situation settled in. This confrontation was not merely about the financial loss. It was about restoring my sense of self-worth, about standing up against the betrayal that had turned my world upside down. I had allowed Mariana's charm to cloud my judgment, but no longer. The tension in the air was palpable as I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the reality of what I was about to confront. I demanded answers, not just for my money, but for the friendship we once shared. The memories flooded back, moments of laughter, trust, and dreams, all now tainted by her deceit. I watched her expression shift from feigned nonchalance to something more defensive, the cracks in her armor widening as she realized I wasn't going to back down. Watching her struggle to maintain her composure filled me with a sense of power I hadn't felt in a long time. I was no longer the victim. I was standing in my truth, and with each passing second, I felt stronger. The hurt she had caused me was still fresh, but it was no longer an anchor dragging me down. Instead, it had become a catalyst for my transformation, a fire igniting my resolve to seek justice. In that dimly lit bar, surrounded by the noise of life continuing as usual, I made a silent vow. This confrontation would be the turning point, the moment I would no longer allow myself to be defined by someone else's betrayal. I would fight for what was rightfully mine, not just in terms of money, but in reclaiming the narrative of my own life. The stakes were high, and I was ready to face whatever came next. As I stood in the courtroom, the air thick with tension, I felt a profound sense of purpose wash over me. This was it, the moment I had been preparing for, not just as a lawyer but as a woman reclaiming her narrative. The sleek wooden benches, the gleaming surface of the judge's desk, and the hushed whispers of the gallery felt like a stage set for an elaborate performance, and I was ready to take center stage. I had spent countless nights gathering evidence, poring over documents, and rehearsing my arguments, but nothing could prepare me for the emotional weight of facing Mariana again. She sat across from me, her demeanor calm yet unervingly composed, as if she were merely an actress in this unfolding drama. The sight of her sent a jolt of anger through me, mingled with the heartbreak of our shattered friendship. I reminded myself that this was no longer about the money, it was about justice, integrity, and the painful process of unmasking betrayal. As I took a deep breath, I recalled the laughter we once shared, the dreams we spun together in our childhood innocence. Now, those memories felt like a distant echo, tainted by deception. I began my presentation, my voice steady and unwavering, detailing the timeline of our friendship and the trust one had placed in her. I could see the subtle flickers of discomfort on Mariana's face as I recounted how I had believed in her, how I had poured my savings into her vision, and how she had vanished without a trace, leaving me in a sea of uncertainty. With each word, I felt the weight of my emotions transform into strength. I presented the evidence I had meticulously compiled, emails, bank statements, and testimonies from her former associates. I painted a vivid picture of the web of lies she had spun, drawing the jury's attention to the patterns of manipulation that defined her actions. I could feel their eyes on me, the gravity of my words sinking in. I watched as Mariana shifted uneasily, her confidence wavering with each revelation. In that moment, I realized that the courtroom was not just a battleground for justice, it was a crucible for my own transformation. I was no longer the naive girl who had idolized her friend. I was a woman who had faced betrayal and emerged determined to reclaim her life. As the trial progressed, I leaned into this newfound resolve, channeling my pain into a fierce determination that fueled my arguments. Mariana, desperate to regain control, attempted to manipulate the narrative, casting herself as a victim of circumstance. But I was ready. I had anticipated her every move, countering her claims with unwavering clarity. I could see the cracks starting to form in her facade as I presented evidence of her previous scams, detailing how she had pulled the same tricks on others before me. The room grew silent, the weight of my findings hanging in the air like a thundercloud, and I could sense Mariana's facade crumbling. The tide was turning, and I felt a surge of power course through me. I was no longer afraid of her. Instead, I was empowered by the truth I was uncovering. I knew that this was not just about my investment. It was about exposing the darkness that had lurked beneath the surface of our friendship. With every piece of evidence, I peeled back the layers of deceit that Mariana had wrapped around her life, revealing the stark reality of her actions. As I concluded my arguments, I saw the fear etched on Mariana's face, a stark contrast to the confident woman I once knew. I had not only prepared a case, I had prepared myself for this confrontation. The courtroom felt like a sanctuary where I could finally voice the betrayal that had haunted me for too long. I had come to unmask not just Mariana, but the fears and insecurities that had held me captive. In that moment, I understood that this battle was not just about recovering my losses, it was about reclaiming my sense of self, my dignity, and my strength. I stood tall, ready for whatever came next, knowing that I had already won a crucial victory in the fight for my own truth. As the trial reached its climax, I stood in the courtroom, heart pounding, a mixture of fear and exhilaration coursing through me. The atmosphere was electric, thick with tension, as I prepared to share a shocking piece of evidence that I hoped would turn the tide in my favor. With every passing moment, I could feel the weight of my past decisions pressing down on me, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the relentless pursuit of justice that had brought me to this moment. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched the folder containing the recording, my mind racing back to the countless hours spent gathering evidence, piecing together the truth from the shards of my shattered trust. I took a deep breath, my voice steadying as I addressed the courtroom, feeling the eyes of the jury, the judge, and even Mariana, who sat across from me, all focused on what I was about to reveal. The room fell silent, anticipation hanging in the air like a taut string ready to snap. I clicked play, and the room was filled with the voice of one of Mariana's former partners, a man I had managed to track down through sheer determination and a few fortuitous connections. The confession poured out, detailing Mariana's deceitful intentions and her elaborate schemes to defraud not just me but countless others. I watched Mariana's face transform from a mask of confidence to one of horror as the truth of her actions echoed around the room. The recorded voice painted a picture of manipulation and betrayal that was all too familiar to me. It was surreal to hear the very words that had once been whispered in the shadows of my trust, now exposed and laid bare for all to see. As the confession played on, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me, mingling with the raw anger I had buried deep within. This was not just about reclaiming my financial losses. It was about reclaiming my narrative, the story of my life that had been hijacked by someone I once called a friend. As the recording ended, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. I could feel the eyes of the jury on me, assessing my determination, my strength, and the depth of my resolve. The judge's gavel struck the desk, breaking the stillness, and the proceedings resumed with renewed vigor. I could see the wheels turning in the minds of the jurors, the shift in their perception of Mariana and the gravity of her actions becoming painfully clear. When the judge finally delivered the verdict of guilt against Mariana, I felt a surge of triumph that I hadn't anticipated. Relief washed over me, mingled with the bittersweet taste of justice served. I had fought hard for this moment, and as I looked across the courtroom, I saw not just the end of a grueling battle but the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The sense of empowerment that filled me was intoxicating. I had reclaimed not only my lost funds but also my dignity and self-worth. In the aftermath, as the dust settled, I was informed that I would not only recover my investment but also gain ownership of the company Mariana had fraudulently established. The irony was not lost on me. The very entity that had once represented betrayal was now transformed into a beacon of my resilience. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction as I contemplated the future, realizing that this experience had reshaped me into a stronger person, one who was more aware of the complexities of trust and ambition. I left the courtroom that day not just as a victor in a legal battle, but as a woman who had unmasked the layers of deception that had clouded my judgment. The journey had been painful, filled with heartache and disappointment, but it had also been enlightening. I was ready to embrace my future, armed with newfound wisdom and a fierce determination to protect what was rightfully mine. The scars of betrayal would always remain, but they would serve as a reminder of my strength and resilience. As I stepped into the sunlight outside the courthouse, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, ready to forge ahead, unafraid and unyielding.